A TikToker is advocating for wider plane aisles, arguing the existing layout is discrimination against larger passengers. And you see, if you watch the video, we all know how this one's going to go, right? Boing. That's pretty wild. I will say up front, before we get to anything political, I will say, wow, this is a very high standard to build aisles for, you know? Like, whatever point I'm about to get to, and I am about to get to a point, this is a remarkable, this is, like, you know what I mean? It's like you're making the argument, you know? I think that you know, bicycles should have a higher weight tolerance, and then you put it into like the compressor things. What are they called? You know, there's a bunch of YouTube videos of them. Not a pressure chamber. What do you call the hydraulic press? That's it. A hydraulic press. Yeah, you know. I think this iPhone breaks too easily, and you like toss it in a volcano. It's a wide ass, is all I'm saying. Anyway, I guess there's not much of a point to watching the video itself outside seeing them move through the aisles. Okay, I will say this though. All right, people hate fat people because they consider them to be like an acceptable target, right? You're fat because of your choices. So like there's no broader discrimination thing here. Like you did this. For one, that's not true, right? Like there are things that can make you fat for no fault of your own, conditions involving sedentary or like you know, weight loss. There's like thyroid gland stuff, but okay, overwhelmingly when people are fat, it's because they ate a lot of food and didn't exercise enough. That's true. We can say some like 95%, maybe even more. Like let's not pretend everyone who's fat has like an eating like this thick thyroid thing, because 50 years ago obesity rates were tiny compared to now, you know. So this is definitely like it's a thing that we have control over. But with that being said, should we actually be mean to fat people? Well, no, obviously. Why? Airplanes are too small for me, bro. And not because of my fat, it's because of my height. When I'm on economy, even with a nicer airline, not like Spirit Airlines or whatever, I can't sit comfortably. I hate flying for a lot of reasons, and part of it is because of that. They pack economy into this meat grinder that fills 80% of the plane, then you got business and first. By the way, business and first are not worth the money you can spend on it. I could afford to fly first class sometimes if I wanted to. I have flown first class on another person's dime. I'm not spending that money. It was nice. It was comfortable. They were considering doing half-stand leaning seats, if I recall correctly. Yeah. Here's the real problem, guys, okay? The airline industry is horribly economically inefficient that operates on incredibly small margins for one key reason, okay? Tickets are too cheap. The entire American, like, interstate commerce, travel, trade, everything industries rely on people being able to move around states freely and easily. Freely here, I mean like easily, not free. And for that, we use planes. Guys, planes are not an efficient way of moving people. You ever thought about that? Like, really? Do we really need entire, like, 747s getting filled up with hundreds of people to take flights between two cities that are 300 miles away? This happens all over the United States. Like, the time that it takes to get into the plane from arriving at the first airport, plus the time from getting off to leaving the airport once you've arrived at your destination, are longer than a train trip between the two places. Seriously, like this happens pretty commonly. The problem here is that, like, as Americans, we have very little in the way of acceptable interstate infrastructure outside of highways, of course, but you don't want to drive everywhere. We don't have much in the way of trains, which is these are a sensible way of moving people. Trains are literally the most efficient way to move things across long distances. You can't get more efficient. You don't have to lift the giant plane up in the air or anything. You have something on the ground following a set path that can't be blocked, stopped, or interrupted with continuous predictable speeds while using a wheel and rail system that is mechanically of the highest possible efficiency for moving people. But instead we don't do that. We do the plane thing, and because everything relies on people being able to take like plane flights easily and cheaply, and they should be affordable, and you should be able to do this more often, they artificially lower the price way below what the flying price would be outside of external market interference. And as a consequence, the only way for airlines to even hope to make any money, alongside subsidies, by the way, is to cram everybody into these. Now, I don't know what exact kind of plane this is, by the way. It looks like there's almost like a bracket holding up. I think this is on the side of a seat that's right here. I've never seen this exact kind of plane. But modern airlines are tiny and cramped, and I can't fit in them that well. And my stomach's not an issue. When I stand up straight, my chest is further out than my stomach. Like, this is purely a leg length thing. And by the way, my hips. I feel really bad for this lady with the fat ass because I've got pretty wide hips for a biological male. And, you know, it spills a little bit into the adjacent seats if I'm in the middle sometimes. You know, if it's a smaller airline seat, you know, like not one of those mega planes, but one of the ones where they kind of cram people in a little more. And like, what am I to do with that? This isn't a fat thing. These are my hip bones. My legs are out that far, you know? I think the problem here is that we don't have a discrimination against fat people issue. We have a discrimination against human body issue. And fat people just feel the effects the worst. We have this is a fundamental disregard for human comfort as a concept. And if you're small, skinny, a contortionist, whatever, then you can work with it. You can deal with it. I'm fine flying. I hate flying mostly for other reasons. Not just the seat comfort thing. You know, I can survive it. Yeah, a canoe is about half my size, and I've never been on a flight with her, but I assume she would have a far easier time than me physically, but I'm fine there. Maybe this particular person isn't, because again, you know, this is pretty remarkable. There's a lot going on here, you know. That's crazy. But this is something we should all care about, you know, rather than all of us being fit into airplanes like sardines, uncomfortable, squashed, cramped, and then, oh, look, haha, there's a fat person having a more difficult time than me, a person who's currently struggling with an uncomfortable seat in which I'm packed in next to people like sardines, but they're having it worse than me, haha, fatty. Know who your enemy is, man. Jesus. Now, I'll acknowledge, even if better standards were made when it comes to like accommodation airlines. And by the way, I am explicitly calling for airplane tickets to either be subsidized more or preferably made way more expensive. Airlines are horrible for the environment. They're inefficient ways of moving people around. They are artificially driven down to the price they're at. I don't want people flying. I want people to not be able to fly because flying is expensive. And then they'll go, wow, if only there was a more efficient way of moving large numbers of people across the states. And then maybe we would have some kind of change. Just maybe, you know? I would like that at least. Also, let's not high horse fat people, okay? Like, something like 2/3 of America is fat. Most of the people online who you see making fun of fat people are fat, or former fat people who are spiteful and hateful because they hate themselves for having allowed themselves to ever get fat, and they take it out on other people because the past them doesn't exist anymore because they're in the past. That's a pretty common thing, by the way. The old fat people hate subreddit was full of people who clearly needed therapy. You know, talking about how I used to be fat and I just now, and how disgusting it is. It's horrible. It's disgusting. And they're disgusting. And they all need therapy. Oh, I want to bring this around one more time, if I may. Again, no system of public transportation will have a single seat that could fit this woman's ass. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that in a better system, trains would accommodate her in one seat. That's not true. She is abnormally thick. This is ridiculous, okay? But on a broader scale, we should have more respect for, like, the physical accommodation of people, of all people. And I'm not comfortable in current airline seats. I say they're height phobic, in addition to being fat phobic. Unironically, I'm really saying that. I'm not making a joke. Trains have a 2-seater bench sometimes. Yeah, that's fine. You should, listen, public transportation should have seats that are comfortable for people, not comfortable for 5'1" gymnasts, comfortable for people, and there will still be people who are very fat or very thick. In her case, this is more of a very thick problem than a very fat problem, because when she turns the side, the thickest part of her body is still her ass. So it's like, yeah, this is a width issue more than a depth issue. So that's crazy, is what I'm saying. That's wild. But even then, you know, say you have a person proportioned in such a way that they can't sit comfortably in a chair. Well, is that fatphobic? No. No, you can't make every chair accommodating for the hypothetical widest human. What you can do is make it easy to just sit in two. You know, we do these on planes even. You can lift up the armrest. This isn't like a big advancement. Have seats that are comfy for everyone, and for the people who are very wide, give them a pretty accessible option that allows them to just lift it up twice. Oh, nice thing about trains over planes, by the way. If you're a fat person and you're getting on a plane and you need 2 seats, first of all, God bless you and good luck. Second of all, you need to pay for 2 tickets. When you're on a plane, you're being charged for the seats. On a train, that's not the case. Trains have stops and starts. They're not filled up to the brim like every plane ride. They're not assigned. A conductor goes aisle to aisle and checks your tickets. Sometimes they don't even do that. So if you're fat and you get in a train, you can just sit in a booth. If you make flights ungodly expensive, what about people who need to get to other countries like other than Canada or Mexico? Then they can take an expensive flight. But keep in mind, I'm mostly talking about the artificially lowered prices of domestic flights. Things are different when we're talking international. International flights, I don't know if you've checked lately, aren't that cheap. They're certainly not as cheap as the flights that are artificially lowered through subsidies and blah-de-blah when stuff is kept within the States. I think that adjustments can be made that will allow for people to, and it will cost money, I mean, we live under capitalism, travel to other countries and such, but we need something better for interstate travel than flying. The fact that when I want to visit my parents in Los Angeles, don't have a reasonable option on a train and instead have to take a plane is ridiculous. Do you know how long the train takes to get from Seattle to Los Angeles? Hold on. The Coast Star Line train. Average train duration, 1 day, 11 hours. Mind you, this is for about 1,100 miles, which means that if you had a train which went 100 miles per hour, that's not unreasonable, not even a little unreasonable. That's not going to happen here in the States because high-speed rail is crippled because the rail industries never wanted to update their systems or whatever. But if you had that being done at 100 miles an hour or whatever, you could make that about a half-day trip. You could get on the train at 8 and get off the train 8, 9, 10, something like that. But 1 day, 11 hours? Keep in mind, by the way, this is between Seattle and LA. This isn't from bum to bum, okay? This is from the biggest city in the Northwest to the biggest city in the Southwest. By far. We're talking about like a pretty obvious connection, especially because it would run through Portland and San Francisco. So it would be a Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles connection with an offshoot that would lead to Sacramento, no doubt. 1 day, 11 hours. Anyway, yeah, that's my lesson here, okay? So yeah, again, their ass will never not be a problem when it comes to finding seating, but that doesn't mean we can't strive for something better. I've taken the train from Seattle to Portland. It was beautiful, but it cost $150 and took 6 hours. 6 hours from Seattle to Portland? Okay, no, I'm actually seeing direct lines between the two that go for about 3.5 hours. That's more reasonable. Okay, so you might have taken a more scenic train. The Seattle to Portland train Amtrak tickets. Oh, hold on. Traveling by train from Seattle to Portland usually takes 5 hours, 30 minutes, but the fastest Amtrak train can make the trip at 3:25. So no, so that's a lie. The real answer is 5 hours, 30 minutes. $28 is pretty cheap, though it is Amtrak. 5 hours and 30 minutes? What's the distance between these cities again? You can drive it in 3 hours. 174 miles? In 5.5 hours? What? What? A European train could cross this in 2 hours with time to spare. Oh. Mind you, they're bragging that their fastest train could do this in 3 hours 30, hypothetically. That's their theoretical maximum speed, 3 hours 30, which is, what, divide that. That's less than 60 miles an hour. Wait, that might actually be exactly 60 miles an hour. No, it's under it. Yeah, that's less than 60. That's literally less than, like, freeway speeds. I will say this, though, guys. $28 to get between Seattle and Portland on a train? The price is right. Probably less than the gas cost of driving there.